Welcome to VectorVest special presentation, this week titled Healing Your Portfolio with WatchLists. My name is Todd Shaffer. I'm the Manager of Research for VectorVest, and I'll be your presenter this evening. Many investors find they've been carrying losing positions in their stock portfolio for some time. If an investment no longer fits your strategy or has fundamental problems, we suggest you consider exiting the position. Our process is an extension of the Weeding Your Portfolio exercise we demonstrate in our Getting Started training, available in our community room, and our Quick Start course that's in the program. In the exercise, we demonstrate how to use the VST system to analyze your stocks and weed the underperformers from your portfolio. That alone can go a long way to improving your portfolio, but it can also be helpful moving forward to manage your portfolio positions and screen potential additions. This is that resource inside the program on the Training tab within the program. Particularly Lessons 1 and 2 are germane to the Weed Your Garden discussion. But for this demonstration, I want to assume that knowledge and pick it up from here. So in the program, we're going to move ahead to our Viewers tab and to our Watch List viewer. I pre-built a watch list of S&P 500 stocks, and I put it into the special presentation folder here, and I called it Healing Your Portfolio. I chose an industry diversified list of top VST stocks and low VST stocks from the S&P 500 to get a nice cross sample with which to work. And I did it on a historical date of April 22nd of this year. So more on that in a moment, why I chose that date, but here is the list of stocks in VST order. So the top of the list populated with strong or high VST scores, the bottom of the list less strong, and there certainly were weaker stocks in the list. I just wanted to get a fair sampling, and I also wanted to get an industry diverse sampling because at the time, on this date, there was a lot of insurance stocks at the top of the list. And of course, we can analyze these stocks for their upside potential, their safety, their current price trend, and their overall VST analysis. Additionally, those individual stocks are rolled together into the watch list average, which is the average data point of all the stocks in the watch list. One of the ways we use this analysis is to understand that the average RV score for our portfolio is 1.09, average RS score 1.10, both above 1, which on a temperament basis is indicative of a prudent approach. On average, the portfolio is trending higher, and the average VST score is 1.13. On average, we're earning $5.52 per share, and forecasted growth at 11% annually. And of course, you can see the rest of the averages for the other data points across the portfolio. I can also right-click on the average line and view a watch list average graph. As I pull that over, this was from April, so let's go to a 3-month time frame, and we see ultimately this graph since that April time frame and about here, kind of going upper left to bottom right. But that's a nice way to graph and get a visualization of how the group has been performing as a group. It's also helpful to compare and contrast each individual stock to the average. And here it becomes pretty apparent pretty quickly that I have some stocks that on a data point basis, a nominal basis, are quite a bit higher than the average, and I have a group of stocks on a nominal basis quite below the averages. And so while broadly speaking I may have a prudent temperament mix, individually I have some widely divergent stocks from the average, showing some inconsistency on my methodology for how I choose stocks. So my assumption for this demonstration is that I own these stocks and have owned them since April 22nd of 2025. And I would like to improve my average score over time. And I'll do that by culling the weak stocks out of the portfolio and replacing them with strength, particularly stocks with better than average scores. And the reason I want to do it over time and not just cull these stocks that have the lower scores is because in the real world, I have no idea how these stocks are going to perform into the future. And additionally, I may have some very strong stocks that fall out of favor with the market for whatever reason that I'll also need to cull from the portfolio. So this is a process that plays out over time. And speaking of time, let's talk about this date of April 22nd and why I chose it. I'm going to go over to a market timing graph, so I'll use the Graphs tab. Here I have a market timing graph. I'm looking at a 3-month window, and I've identified our date of April 22nd, 2025. I have green light buyer signals on, and you can see that coming off of that market low, this was the first green light buyer signal that we had in the VectorVest system coming off of that low. So presumably we held these stocks coming into the low, and we've had a little bounce off of the low. And right now that portfolio, that watch list, looked relatively strong. No sell-rated stocks. No stocks that were in dramatic downtrends. So going back to our watch list, these were the stocks and their data point values on the 22nd of April. So let's begin by just benchmarking the performance of this basket of stocks over this time frame. We saw the average graph was lower right, upper left to lower right. Let's use our quick test tool, and we'll quick test from that start date to current. And we see that, yeah, it's kind of ugly here. A lot of red ink. Newmont Mining, the only stock to make gains, but overall the basket fell 8.3%, while the VectorVest composite, the broad market, was up 13.5%. So had we simply held the basket to current, we'd be down that 8% if I sort by percentage price change. However, we see that there were 4 stocks in double-digit losses that were carrying the brunt of that pain. And as we discussed, there's no possible way that I would know that that would be the outcome back in early April. So in the real world, how might I have managed this portfolio over time, culling the stocks that underperformed and replace them with better stocks? Enter the backtester. Here's what that same quick test looks like in the backtester. So the backtester is tracking that portfolio of stocks, that basket of stocks, but also plotting the equity of that basket on a daily basis. So the first thing we notice is the equity curve that's going from upper left to bottom right. Not exactly what we're looking for. On the left-hand side, we have the transactions that occurred. But if I click on settings, these were the settings for the test. So we started with a $100,000 portfolio, paying no commissions. We didn't use any market timing. We simply held a basket of stocks from the Healing Your Portfolio watch list and held them through our test period. Back above the graph, if I click on holdings, you can see our list of stocks that matches the watch list. And these are the stocks in the portfolio itself. So if I go back to the equity curve, the date line tells me we are run current. So we're run through the 2nd of July. And here's our performance metrics. That portfolio had 10% winners. In other words, 1 winner, 9 losers. We lost 8.25%. with a maximum drawdown of 10.32% from the highest value to the lowest value. So the good news is we did come up off of that low by about 2% into the end of the sample. So that's our base run. For the next run, I wanted to add some very simple or basic controls. Remember, my goal over time is to stop the downdraft and bend this curve to an uptrend. So the rules for my next test are displayed here in the settings window again. Here we set up a rule that says if a stock gets a sell recommendation, then we'll close that position and we'll replace it with the top stock from the search result from the top VST stocks search. I did also require that I could only have 2 stocks per industry maximum as part of my settings. So the first thing you probably noticed right away is that our downtrend turned into something more sideways, right? A lot of chop during this time frame, but we did staunch some of that downtrend and actually turned into uptrend in the last several weeks of our test. So we'll look at the details here in a moment, but first let's look at that performance line at the top, where you can see now we had 33% winners. In fact, let me drag this down so we can compare. 33% winners instead of 10% winners. Our gain turned from an 8-point loss to a 2-point gain. Our max drawdown fell from 10% to 4.9%. I'll call it 5. We cut the drawdown in half. Now let's drill into the details. I'll go to the holdings button. And let's take it from the watch list view. Let's push the automation window off to the side here a little bit. Do you note the difference in the VST scores overall? Much more robust than we had in the original portfolio. Still have some weakness, but overall that weakness still kept under control. And we have an industry diversified list of only 2 stocks per industry max. I added these stocks to a watch list. Before I do that, let's look at the ROIs on these stocks also. Sterling Infrastructure, we added shortly after the start date. Celestico is added in June, but the Newmont Mining was held from the beginning. UDR, Progressive, Equity. So some of them did recover and made nice gains. Those that stayed in the portfolio, while they may be down, they're not down significantly, and so we stemmed the tide working against us in the portfolio. Now I put that watch list onto a slide. Let me jump back over to it. Here's that watch list, and I overlaid the average of the old watch list above the current watch list. And just look at the comparison of numbers between RV from 107 to 133, RS 104 to 124, RT from 0.92 to 135, VST from 1.02 to 1.33. Those are the averages. The particulars show a vast improvement of what we had originally. And we didn't have to predict winners or losers. We just replaced demonstrated weakness with strength. This is how you fix a broken portfolio. So we teach these methods, among others, in our full Successful Investor course. It's free to members. If you're not a member, you can sign up for a trial to VectorVest and become one. And then join us for the live mastery sessions that begin July 23rd. I look forward to seeing you there, but for tonight, I say thank you for watching and have a great weekend. Bye for now.